She was bullied at school. A year later, the entire city saluted her at the airport. Do you ever wonder what happens when the quiet one finally decides not to stay quiet anymore? When the new girl with the steady hands and lowered eyes decides she's done playing by someone else's rules. This isn't a story about revenge. It's about a warning that nobody listened to. It began in a hallway crowded with laughter and judgment, where a girl nobody knew refused to move for a boy who thought he owned the floor beneath her feet. In exactly 9 minutes, he would regret everything. His pride, his smirk, his need to dominate. Because Natalie Brooks was not the kind of girl you push twice. Stick around, because what happened in that school hallway changed not just her life, but the entire town of Brighton Ridge. Welcome to Cracks of Light, where we tell the stories that go beyond the headlines and into the moments that define us. Hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what comes next. Natalie Brooks stepped into Brighton Ridge High with the kind of posture that made you look twice. Not because it was loud or flashy, but because it was quiet and controlled, like someone who could see everything but chose to say nothing. Her mother had told her this place would be different, slower, safer. It wasn't. The moment she walked into homeroom, the air changed. Not because of anything she did, but because she was new. And in Brighton Ridge, new meant unwelcome. City girl, someone muttered under their breath as she passed, and the snickering started before she even sat down. She ignored it, like she'd practiced. Chin up, eyes forward, don't bite back. That was the rule now. No fights. No headlines. Just finish high school and get out. But that was before Cody Fisher leaned back in his seat, gave her a once-over with that trademark smirk, and said, "You'll want to remember how things work here, sweetheart." She didn't look at him. Not then. She didn't need to. She could already read him. Athlete build, self-appointed alpha male, always surrounded by the same 3 shadows who laughed on cue. What she didn't expect was the silence that fell when she didn't respond. He wasn't used to that. "I'm talking to you," he added, louder this time. She met his eyes, finally. Flat. Unimpressed. "I heard you," she said. "I just didn't think it was worth answering." Gasps. Laughter. And then a kind of buzz that ran through the room like someone had flipped a switch. You don't talk to Cody Fisher like that. Not here. Not ever. The teacher walked in, breaking the moment, but it didn't matter. Lines had already been drawn. She didn't know it yet, but from that point on, Natalie Brooks wasn't just the new girl. She was a challenge. A threat. And Cody? He wasn't going to let that go unanswered. Natalie knew the first day wasn't the worst part. It was the days that followed. The slow, calculated escalation of cruelty that didn't scream in your face, but whispered behind your back until it wrapped around you like a noose. It started small. Textbooks missing from her locker, sarcastic notes slipped into her backpack. Chairs moved just enough so she'd trip when she sat down. Then came the accidents. A carton of milk slipped out of someone's hand and splashed across her clothes in the cafeteria. A tray bumped her elbow just as she was reaching for her lunch, sending her food tumbling to the floor. Each time it happened, no one helped. Most just watched. Some laughed. Cody Fisher never laid a hand on her himself. He didn't have to. His crew, Austin, Tyler, and Mia, did his bidding with the kind of practiced cruelty that came from never facing consequences. One day, she opened her locker to find torn-out pages of her English essay, shredded and stuffed inside like confetti. Another morning, her face was plastered on a fake missing poster with the words, "Lost, basic human decency," printed across it. It was taped to every classroom door before homeroom. Natalie said nothing. Her mother, Dr. Brooks, had enough on her plate with night shifts at the hospital and 1,000 new patient charts to memorize. Natalie didn't want to add one more thing to worry about. She kept her mouth shut, cleaned up the messes, rewrote her homework, and told herself it would pass. But it didn't. It got worse. Because silence was interpreted as weakness, and weakness was a target. One Thursday, during gym class, she went to the locker room early to change, hoping to avoid the others. Her hoodie was gone. She found it soaked in water and stuffed into a toilet tank. Her shoes, both left on the bench, were filled with what smelled like spoiled milk. Natalie stared at the ruined clothes, her throat burning. She didn't cry. Not there. She cleaned herself up as best she could and went to class with damp sleeves and wet socks. At lunch, nobody offered a seat. She sat alone in the far corner, pretending to scroll her phone, pretending not to hear the laughter 3 tables over. That night, She practiced in silence. In the garage, after her mother fell asleep, Natalie wrapped her hands in tape, took her stance, and moved through her strikes like muscle memory was the only thing she could still trust. Jab, cross, left hook. She hit the air hard enough to feel it bite. She didn't want to fight. That wasn't the plan. But something inside her felt like it was rotting. And if she didn't let it out, it was going to consume her. The next day, it happened again. In front of the whole cafeteria, Cody walked by and accidentally spilled a tray of spaghetti across her lap. "Oops," he said without stopping. Laughter erupted. Natalie didn't move. Not at first. Red sauce soaked into her jeans, warm and acidic. She breathed in, out, in again. Her hand twitched. Her instincts screamed. But she remembered the promise. No trouble, her mother had said. No violence. No headlines. Natalie stood, left the food, and walked out without a word. No one followed. Not even the teachers looked up. That was the worst part. That no one saw it for what it was. Or worse, that they did and simply chose not to get involved. Later that afternoon, Mr. Wyatt called on her in history class. Natalie had the answer but didn't respond. Her voice caught in her chest. He paused, eyes narrowing. "Miss Brooks, can you stay a minute after class?" She didn't argue. She waited while the room emptied out. He sat down across from her, silent for a long moment. Then he leaned in, hands clasped together. "You know," he said quietly, "I've seen this before. Same look in your eyes." She didn't reply. He continued. "The military calls it internal lockdown. You try to be invisible, hope no one sees the pressure building. But you're not hiding it as well as you think." Natalie looked at him then. Not with panic, not with fear, but with something older. Exhaustion. "It's fine," she said. "I can handle it." He studied her a second longer. "I believe you. But the question is, how long should you have to?" She didn't have an answer. He opened a drawer, pulled out a single laminated card, and slid it across to her. It was a list of school resources, counselors, hotlines, all the typical things. She didn't touch it. "I'm not here to report anyone," she said. "I don't need therapy. I just want to finish school and leave this place." He nodded slowly. "Understood. Then consider this advice instead. From someone who's seen what happens when strong people stay silent too long." He paused, then said it, quietly, deliberately. "Real strength isn't about striking back. It's knowing when to hold your fire. And when to aim." Natalie felt something shift in her chest. He didn't pity her. He respected her. And that made all the difference. "Thank you," she said, standing. He didn't stop her. "If you ever need to talk, not as a teacher, just as someone who's seen some things, I'm here." She nodded and walked out. The next week, the bullying didn't stop. If anything, it morphed. They stopped going for her directly and started dragging others into it. A freshman who had smiled at her in class found her locker spray painted. Another girl, Sophia, got pushed down the stairs for walking with Natalie after gym. The message was clear: stay away from the freak, or you're next. Natalie felt it all. Every whisper. Every bruise that wasn't on her body. The guilt of their pain sat heavier on her shoulders than any of the trash they'd thrown at her. One day, she found Sophia in the nurse's office, quietly icing her ankle. The girl looked up, ashamed. "They said it was because I talked to you." Natalie didn't apologize. She couldn't. She just said, "I'm sorry you got caught in it." Sophia smiled weakly. "I'm not." That night, Natalie sat in bed staring at her ceiling. She couldn't sleep. Her fists were clenched under the blanket. She wasn't afraid of pain. She was afraid of what would happen if she stopped controlling it. She didn't want to be the angry girl who lashed out. She didn't want to be the story people used to scare their kids. But silence wasn't working. She remembered Mr. Wyatt's words. Strength isn't in the hit. It's in the timing. In the choice. That weekend, she found an old pair of gloves in the garage and started training again. Not to hurt anyone, but to remember who she was. Because if she didn't, someone else would define it for her. Monday came. Another incident. They rigged her locker with glitter bombs, red and gold, sticky, impossible to remove. The hallway roared with laughter. Natalie stood still, covered in sparkling dust, and looked directly at Cody for the first time in days. His smirk faltered. Just a little. Enough to let her know. He noticed. She walked away without cleaning it off. In the bathroom mirror, she studied herself. Her eyes. Her shoulders. Her silence. It had protected her, sure, but it hadn't stopped them. She whispered one sentence to her reflection. Not one step further. Something was coming. She could feel it. Not violence. Not revenge. Just an answer. One they wouldn't see coming. And when it did, it wouldn't be messy. It would be precise. Clean. Controlled. Because that's what Natalie Brooks had trained for. Not to lose control, but to decide, once and for all, when it was time to stop running. It was raining the night everything changed. But before that, before the sky broke open and the town found out who Natalie Brooks really was, something else had already snapped. It wasn't her. Not yet. It was another girl. Her name was Claire Jennings. Junior. Tall. Quiet. Always reading during lunch. Claire didn't have enemies. She didn't have friends, either. Just silence. That made her an easy target. One of the alpha girls, Mia, caught her talking to Sophia after gym. Maybe it was the smile. Maybe it was the fact that Claire had helped Sophia pick up her books. Either way, it was enough. That Thursday, after last period, Claire was pulled into the back parking lot by Austin and Tyler. Mia filmed. Claire didn't scream. She just stood there, frozen, as the boys circled her and tossed her backpack between them like it was a game. "Come on, Claire," one of them mocked. "Give us a show." She didn't. She stood stiff as a statue, eyes wide, breathing sharp. Then one of them said something crude. Something that crossed a line so fast it burned. Natalie had been walking by the edge of the field, cutting behind the bleachers to avoid the main crowd. She heard it. That voice. That ugly laugh. That word. She stopped. Turned. The parking lot wasn't visible from where she stood, but she heard the impact. A backpack hitting concrete. Claire's startled gasp. More laughter. Natalie didn't think. She moved. Fast. Silent. She cut through the trees and around the edge of the lot. They hadn't seen her. Claire's back was against the fence. Tyler had just reached for her phone. Austin turned toward Mia's camera, pretending to dance, like this was some twisted music video. That's when Natalie stepped forward. No words. No warning. Just one clean motion. Her foot pivoted. Elbow tight. The strike landed square in Austin's gut with the kind of force that knocks wind out before the brain can even process what's happening. He crumpled. Mia screamed and dropped the phone. Tyler turned, saw Natalie, hood up, face shadowed, and froze. What the? She was already moving. A sharp sidestep, a feint, then a hook across the jaw that sent him stumbling backward into the rear bumper of a truck. Claire stared. Speechless. Natalie didn't wait. She picked up Claire's bag, shoved it into her arms, and said just one word. Go. Claire nodded. Ran. Natalie turned and disappeared back into the shadows. By the time a teacher came out, the lot was empty except for two groaning boys and a hysterical girl yelling that someone came out of nowhere like a ninja. The rumors started by sixth period the next day. Some senior chick from the martial arts club. No, it was a parent. It was a prank. There's no footage. Mia dropped her phone. But Cody wasn't convinced. He stared at Natalie across the cafeteria table, eyes narrow, chewing slowly like his brain was working overtime. He'd noticed the glitter bomb incident, the way she hadn't flinched. He'd seen the way Sophia and Claire started glancing at Natalie like she was a secret they owed something to. It didn't add up. Quiet girls don't move like that. They don't carry themselves like coiled wire. They don't look you in the eye when you're trying to intimidate them and show zero fear. He decided to test it. Friday night. School game. Rain on the forecast. Cody and his crew waited by the north exit where Natalie usually slipped out early. The plan was simple. Catch her alone. Provoke her. Get it on camera. Prove she wasn't so innocent after all. Natalie knew something was off the second she left the gym. The hallway was too empty. The lights flickered just wrong. She stepped into the lot and saw Cody leaning against his truck, phone in hand, fake smile stretched across his face. Evening, Brooks, he said. We need to talk. She didn't stop walking. Come on, he called. You're not scared, are you? That was the hook. She kept walking. Then she heard it. The shuffle of sneakers behind her. The rain started, light at first, then heavier. She turned the corner and saw Austin and Mia, partially hidden, camera already rolling. Cody stepped in front of her path. Tell you what, he said, voice louder now. You tell me who jumped my guys last night, and maybe I won't press charges. She didn't answer. No? Fine, he said. Let's try something else. He reached out and grabbed her wrist. Big mistake. Her hand snapped free with a twist that made his shoulder jerk. She stepped back. He came at her. It was fast. Sloppy. All power, no control. Natalie's breath slowed. The noise disappeared. Her hands moved automatically. Block. Step. Shift. The first hit came from him, a shove. The second came from her, a palm strike to the sternum. He gasped. She didn't stop. A short jab to the ribs. He swung. She ducked. The next strike was a sweep. His legs went out from under him. He hit the wet pavement hard. Austin yelled. Mia screamed. The camera kept rolling. Cody staggered up, furious now, drenched and humiliated. You think you're tough? He roared. You think you're better than me? She didn't answer. His next move was wild. A charge. She sidestepped and landed one last hit. A left hook to the side of the jaw. He dropped. Hard. Silent. The only sound was the rain. Natalie stood over him, chest rising, fists still up. Then she lowered them. Turned. Walked away. Nobody followed. By Monday, the video was everywhere. Uploaded. Clipped. Shared. Students whispered it in hallways. Teachers talked about it behind closed doors. Parents watched it with narrowed eyes and furrowed brows. And Cody Fisher? He didn't come to school. Natalie didn't speak. She didn't gloat. She didn't defend. She just went to class. Sat in her usual seat. Ignored the stares. The principal called her in for a meeting. She told the truth. Or most of it. He tried to corner me. I defended myself. You struck him 7 times. I could have struck him 20. I didn't. They had no answer for that. The school didn't suspend her. Not immediately. Not with the footage so clearly showing aggression on Cody's part. Still, rumors turned to headlines. Parents started calling the district. Some demanded she be expelled. Others called her a hero. For the first time, the town didn't know which side it was on. But one thing was clear. Natalie Brooks wasn't invisible anymore. She was undeniable. And from that moment forward, no one called her weak again. It took less than 24 hours for the video to blow up. By the time Natalie woke up the next morning, it had already been reposted on local community pages, shared by anonymous school gossip accounts, and picked up by a regional news affiliate. The clip was only 29 seconds long, bad lighting, shaky footage, rain-slick concrete, but it was enough. Cody charging. Natalie moving like lightning. The final hit. The sound of him hitting the ground. And then her, standing over him like a ghost you couldn't unsee. The comments came fast. Some were simple. Whoa. Who is she? Others were more loaded. That girl's a beast. She needs to be expelled. Nah, she's a hero. Dude attacked her. Looks like assault to me. She was defending herself. This is what happens when kids learn violence. She should teach self-defense. Cody had it coming. No girl should fight like that. Every girl should. Natalie didn't respond to any of it. She didn't like or repost or explain. She went to school as usual. But nothing was usual anymore. Students looked at her differently. Some with admiration. Some with fear. Some with thinly veiled resentment. The staff kept their distance. Even Mr. Wyatt said less than usual, though the look in his eyes told her he was watching closely. Then came the summons. A letter from the district. A formal hearing regarding her use of excessive force on school property. Natalie sat in the kitchen holding it in one hand while her mother stood across the counter reading the second copy. I thought you said it was self-defense, Dr. Brooks said quietly. It was. Then why does this feel like you're the one on trial? Natalie didn't answer. Because she already knew. Cody's father wasn't just the principal. He was a legacy figure in the school board, a man who'd been untouchable in this town since long before Natalie arrived. And now his son was the laughingstock of half the internet. There had to be a response. Retaliation disguised as due process. That's how it worked here. The week leading up to the hearing was a blur of whispered gossip, uncomfortable stares, and administrators avoiding eye contact. Some of Cody's crew stopped showing up altogether. Tyler transferred. Mia posted a cryptic message about trauma and silence, then vanished from the cafeteria. Austin limped through the hallways, but kept his head down. And Cody? Cody was silent. Not a word. Not a statement. Not a single appearance at school. Rumors swirled. Therapy. Suspension. Hospital visits. Natalie didn't care. Not because she lacked empathy, but because she'd already spent too long giving space to people who never gave her any in return. The hearing was held in the district office, behind closed doors. A table. A few chairs. A board woman taking notes. 2 lawyers. 1 district official. Her mother. And Natalie. Across from her sat Principal Fisher, stiff-backed and fuming, and beside him, his son. Cody looked thinner than before. Paler. His jaw was bruised yellow at the corner. He didn't meet her eyes. His father spoke first. Accusations about violence, about endangering school safety, about creating a culture of fear. His lawyer followed, painting Natalie as combative, secretly trained, a risk. Words like intent to harm and reckless conduct were tossed around like they didn't belong to real people. Natalie kept her face still. Her mother squeezed her hand under the table once, then let go. When it was her turn to speak, she stood, looked them all in the eye. "I didn't start anything," she said, "but I ended it. Because I had to." She listed the incidents. The milk, the locker sabotage, the public humiliation, the threats to Claire. She described the parking lot, the rain, the ambush. "I didn't strike first," she said, "but I struck back. Because no one else ever does." Her voice didn't shake. "They came after me. Repeatedly. You didn't protect me. So I protected myself." The room was quiet. The district lawyer cleared her throat, then called for witnesses. One by one, students began to speak. Sophia told them about the stairs. Claire talked about the night she was cornered. A boy from English class shared how Cody once knocked a pencil from Natalie's hand every day just to laugh at the way she picked it up. The tide shifted. Slowly. Tangibly. Then Cody stood. Everyone turned. Even his father looked confused. He didn't look angry. He looked tired. "I want to say something," Cody said. His lawyer objected. The official allowed it. He stepped forward. Looked at Natalie for the first time in weeks. "I thought she was weak," he said. "I thought she was scared. And that made me feel powerful. Like I could control it. Like I was winning something." He looked down at the floor. "But I was wrong. About all of it." Silence. He didn't cry. He didn't flinch. He just said what needed to be said. "I deserved to be stopped." It wasn't a full apology. It wasn't perfect. But it broke the room open. The district voted unanimously. No expulsion. No suspension. Natalie was cleared of all charges. But the fallout was far from over. That night, another video surfaced, this time from a different angle. Clearer. Showing Cody grabbing Natalie's wrist. Showing her pulling away. Showing the control in every movement she made. The comments flooded in again. This time, louder. This time, laced with something else. Respect. She became a symbol overnight. Not by choice. Not because she asked for it. But because no one else had stood their ground like that. Not at this school. Not in this town. The story made its way to a national talk show. Headlines labeled her the quiet fighter. Interviews were requested. Her face showed up on social feeds across the country. Some people still called it violence. Others called it justice. Natalie called it necessary. That weekend, she walked into school as usual. Head high. Shoulders back. For the first time, no one blocked her way. No one whispered. They just moved aside. Not out of fear, but out of understanding. Because now, everyone knew. She wasn't just the girl who fought back. She was the one who didn't break. The verdict was unanimous, but the relief was complicated. Natalie had been cleared of all charges. No suspension, no permanent mark on her record. But the district made one quiet decision behind closed doors that felt heavier than any punishment. Effective immediately, Natalie Brooks was barred from participating in any athletic competition or martial arts activity on school grounds for the remainder of the academic year. No training, no tournaments, no exhibition matches. The logic was simple. The paperwork read, Preventative Safety Protocol. It didn't matter that she defended herself with control. It didn't matter that every witness had backed her. The optics were too much. A girl who could knock a boy out cold in under 30 seconds couldn't be seen sparring casually in the school gym, not while parents still whispered her name like it meant danger. So they stripped her of the thing that had kept her steady for years. Natalie didn't argue. She nodded, signed the form, and walked out of the office without saying a word. But the ache was there. Quiet. Constant. Like an old bruise beneath the skin. Mr. Wyatt found her that afternoon, sitting outside the library steps, tapping the edge of her shoe against the concrete like she needed motion to keep from unraveling. He didn't speak right away, just sat down next to her and waited. Finally, she said, "They're scared of me." He didn't deny it. "Yeah," he said, "but not for the reason you think." "Then what is it?" "They're scared of what you represent. Power in a place that's used to control. You didn't just fight back. You won. People don't forget that." She looked at him. "So what do I do with it?" He nodded slowly, like he'd been waiting for her to ask. "You teach." It started small. One empty classroom after school. A few folding mats. No announcements, no posters. Just a quiet invitation passed between students like a rumor they weren't sure was real. The first day, 3 kids showed up. Sophia, Claire, and a freshman boy named Luke whose older brother had once tripped Natalie in the hallway for laughs. Natalie wasn't sure how to begin. She stood there, hands folded, staring at them as they stood awkwardly waiting. Then she remembered what her first coach had told her. Start simple. Start honest. This isn't about fighting, she said. It's about walking into a room and not shrinking. It's about knowing you can say no. And if it comes to it, knowing how to get away in one piece. They nodded, and they kept coming. By the 3rd week, there were 10. Mr. Wyatt helped reserve space in the gym. By the 5th, they had 35. It wasn't just students. Parents started asking questions. One mother whose daughter had been bullied in middle school asked if she could sit in. Another, a single father who worked night shifts, brought his son and stayed to take notes. Natalie didn't turn anyone away. She taught the basics: balance, footwork, breath control, how to break free from a wrist grab, how to block, how to yell without fear, how to stand your ground without swinging. You don't win by being loud, she told them. You win by being sure. She never mentioned Cody, never talked about the video, but everyone knew, and that's why they listened, even the ones who once called her names. One afternoon, Austin walked into the gym. He didn't say a word, just stood by the door, arms crossed, not looking at anyone. She didn't ask why. She just tossed him a pad. Hold it up, she said. He flinched the first time someone hit it. By the end of class, his grip was solid. Mia showed up a week later. No camera, no attitude, just quiet steps and a folded notebook. She didn't participate right away, but she watched closely, and Natalie let her, because she knew what fear looked like when it dressed itself as sarcasm. Change didn't come overnight, but it came. The hallways started to shift. People still stared, but the stares softened. Teachers smiled more. Students talked more openly. The cafeteria that once buzzed with whispered threats and smug glances now hummed with something else: respect. Even the locker rooms felt different. Less tension, more space to breathe. One morning, Natalie arrived early to prep the gym. Cody was there, sitting on the bleachers. Alone. He looked up when she entered, but didn't stand. Didn't think you'd talk to me, he said. I'm not here to talk, she replied. Then I'll keep it short. He stood slowly, hands in his pockets. I watched the video again. The full one. She waited. I looked scared, he said. Like, I didn't belong in the same scene as you. She didn't respond. He nodded. Anyway, I came to say thank you. For what? For not hitting me harder. He tried to laugh, but it came out crooked. And for not letting me keep being that guy. She looked at him for a long second, then nodded once. That was enough. He didn't join the class, but he never interrupted again. By the time winter rolled around, the self-defense group had a name: the Stand Project. Students from nearby schools asked if they could attend. The local paper ran a story titled "Courage in the Classroom." Natalie refused interviews, but she let the story run because it wasn't about her anymore. It was about everyone else. The ones who'd never thrown a punch, but showed up every day to learn how to stand taller. One day, a little girl, maybe 10, stood in the back of the gym with her mom, eyes wide. Natalie knelt beside her and said, "What do you want to learn?" The girl said, "How not to cry when boys yell at me." Natalie smiled gently. "Let's start with how to breathe through it. Then we'll work on the rest." Mr. Wyatt watched from the sideline, arms folded, a rare grin tugging at his mouth. "You're doing more than teaching," he told her later. "You're reshaping the whole place." Natalie didn't answer. She didn't need to, because for the first time in her life, she didn't feel like she was fighting to survive. She was building something stronger, something lasting. Courage wasn't about fists. It was about moments like these. Quiet, unnoticed by headlines, but loud enough to echo in the bones of every kid who finally believed they weren't helpless, that they could stand, and that if they couldn't yet, they weren't alone while learning how. The incident didn't start like a crisis. It started like a misstep, a late pickup, a father pacing the sidewalk near the school gate while the sky darkened and most kids had already gone home. From a distance, he looked normal, coat unzipped, keys jingling in one hand, phone pressed to his ear. But Natalie noticed the way his voice clipped, how the little boy beside him flinched every time he shifted. Something was wrong. She was locking up the gym when she heard it. Not yelling, yet, but something worse. Low tones, threatening, calling. Natalie looked up. It was Cody. He was standing coated in slurred frustration. The man's name was Jeff Ryan. His son, Tyler, was 7, a second grader who sometimes waited in the building next door while his dad wrapped up work. Only today, work had ended early, and he'd ended it at a bar. Tyler said something. No one heard what, but it set his father off. Jeff grabbed the boy's backpack and flung it across the sidewalk. "You don't talk back to me," he hissed. "You think I got time to chase after you?" The boy stood frozen, eyes wide, arms at his sides like if he stayed still enough, maybe his father would forget he was there. Natalie didn't hesitate. She crossed the parking lot fast, her steps deliberate. "Sir," she said, voice even, "you need to step away from him." Jeff turned. His face was flushed, eyes red. He sized her up, gave a short laugh. "What are you, hall monitor now?" She didn't blink. "He's scared. You're scaring him. That ends here." Jeff stepped forward. "Too close. You got no idea what's going on here, little girl." She didn't back down. "I know what fear looks like." He reached out, maybe to shove her, maybe worse. He never got the chance. Her hand came up fast, deflecting his arm, pivoting his weight sideways in one smooth motion. He stumbled, lost his footing, and hit the concrete with a curse. Not hard, not violently, but enough to realize he'd messed with the wrong person. Natalie didn't touch him again, just stepped between him and the boy. "Tyler, go inside. Now." The boy ran. Faculty arrived within minutes. Police 5 minutes after that. Jeff was handcuffed on the spot, still protesting loudly that he hadn't done anything wrong, that it was all a misunderstanding. But the cameras had already rolled. A junior named Emma had recorded the whole thing from the third-floor window. The clip made its way online before Natalie even got home. Unlike last time, there was no split in public opinion. There was no debate, no argument about context or overreaction. The footage showed it clearly: a drunk man, threatening a child, lunging at a teenage girl who didn't even raise her voice. The comments weren't cold or cautious. They were furious. "She's a hero. That little boy could have been seriously hurt. She's not a fighter. She's a protector." The school board called her mother first. They wanted to issue a statement. Then a local security company reached out, Promark Response Systems, a firm that specialized in school safety and educational outreach. They weren't offering a sponsorship. They were offering a platform. Would she consider being a student ambassador? Spokesperson? A face for a program focused on standing up against school-based intimidation and domestic threats? Natalie didn't answer right away. She didn't want to be a brand. She just wanted to live her life. Quiet. Focused. Simple. But the calls kept coming. Parents. Teachers. Students she didn't know. "Thank you," they said. "You gave us someone to point to. You showed us what it looks like when someone doesn't back down." Her mother sat her down at the dinner table that weekend. It was the first time she'd really stopped to breathe since the footage had gone viral again. Dr. Brooks didn't say much. Just slid a framed photo across the table. It was old. A man in uniform. Strong jawline. Same eyes as Natalie. He would have been proud, her mother whispered. Natalie looked at the photo. Her father had died when she was 10. She didn't remember much. Just a sense of safety when he was nearby. And the quiet certainty in the way he carried himself. Never loud, never showy, just solid. Unshakable. Like a wall you could lean against without even asking. "He hated bullies," her mother added. Natalie didn't speak. She didn't have to. The next morning, she called Promark. Agreed to a meeting. Not because she wanted recognition, but because she knew the fear in Tyler's eyes wasn't rare. Because sometimes, no matter how many classes you run, the real lesson comes from what you do when it's not a drill. At the press conference 2 weeks later, she didn't wear a blazer. She wore jeans and the same gray hoodie she'd worn when she stepped between a drunk man and a terrified child. Her speech was short, clear. "This isn't about being brave," she said. "It's about being ready. Most people think power comes from size, from yelling, from taking control. But real strength is quiet. It's in the choice to stay calm when you want to scream. It's in knowing you can act and choosing when." The crowd stood. Cameras clicked. But all she cared about was the small nod from her mother in the front row and the quiet pride in Mr. Wyatt's face. He never said "good job." He just met her eyes with the same respect he always had. That was enough. By the end of the semester, the town had changed again. Not overnight, but noticeably. More schools adopted self-defense curriculum. More teachers took intervention training. Natalie's Stand project became part of the district's official after-school programs. and students who once rolled their eyes now lined up for workshops. Not because they expected to fight, but because they finally believed they could choose not to be afraid. Natalie still trained. Not for medals, not for titles, but because it kept her centered. Because sometimes, the strongest people are the ones who don't need to prove anything at all. They just show up. Ready, steady, unshaken. Graduation day wasn't supposed to feel like this. Natalie had expected a quiet ceremony, a handshake, a diploma, and a silent exit. But when she stepped onto the stage, the entire senior class stood. Not just for formality, not because they were told to, but because they meant it. Applause broke through the auditorium like a wave, rising and rolling, louder than anything she had heard all year. Some cheered. Others clapped with tears in their eyes. Mr. Wyatt gave her a small nod from the back of the room. Her mother, front row, hand over her mouth, already crying. And then there was Cody. He stood off to the side, unsure for a second. Then he walked up slowly, not rushed, no grand gesture. Just a folded piece of paper in one hand and something quieter in his eyes. "I never said this the right way," he began, voice low but steady, enough for those around them to hear, "but thank you for not turning into the person you had every right to become." Natalie tilted her head slightly. "You mean bitter?" He shook his head. "I mean unstoppable in a way that could have crushed me. But you didn't." He paused, then added, "I used to think being a man meant showing strength all the time. You showed me it's the opposite. Real strength's about knowing when not to use it." She didn't reply, just held his gaze a moment longer, then gave a single nod. That was enough. That afternoon, at the small regional airport just beyond the edge of town, Natalie arrived with 2 bags and 1 acceptance letter to a university that had no idea what kind of student they were about to receive. Her mother walked her to the gate, hugging her once, tightly, then stepping back. "Your dad would be proud," she whispered. "Not because of how strong you are, but because of what you did with it." Natalie gave her a tired smile. She turned toward the plane, ready to board, then heard it, soft at first, then building. A noise behind her. When she turned, she froze. The terminal was full. Students, teachers, even people from town she barely knew, lined up shoulder to shoulder, clapping again. A slow, steady rhythm that said, "We remember you. We believe in you. We're not letting you go unnoticed." Claire was there. Sophia, Luke, Mia, even Austin. And standing near the back, awkward but smiling, was Cody. Natalie didn't cry. She just took a breath, squared her shoulders, and gave a small wave. Then she boarded the plane. As the wheels left the runway, she looked out the window one last time at the town that had once tried to break her and ended up becoming the place that finally understood her. This wasn't the end. It was just the next step. And if this story reminded you of someone you know, or something you felt but never said out loud, don't stay silent. Share it. Speak up. Be the one who stands. And if this story moved you, inspired you, or made you think, hit that like button, subscribe to Cracks of Light, and leave a comment below. We tell the stories others forget. Let's keep remembering them, together.